Okay, hello everyone. Very happy to be here today, representing John Humphrey Centre for Peace and Human Rights. Today, the hope is to talk a little bit about the organization and with a spotlight on one of the events that we have coming up that we hope to be able to engage everybody in. As mentioned, my organization is John Humphrey Centre for Peace and Human Rights. And before I like to start, we just like to acknowledge where we are at JHC, because JHC has been doing a lot of work. It dates back to 1988 when it was founded, and we recently started doing a lot more human rights advocacy work in 2006. And the point of kind of like acknowledging this is because as we do human rights work, it's necessary to kind of like understand like where we are and what has happened in the past to put the systems that are in place that we may be trying to work with, work through, work to dismantle. Personally, to me, I really like to do this grounding because I am an immigrant to Canada. It's been a while now, but still. And it's important for me to acknowledge kind of like where I am, the role that I play, my positionality here, and the people who had owned this land and came before me. So I always just kind of like to start with that. I would also like to mention that diversity is honored in all the people, and it is from this place that we acknowledge the land that we are in Canada as well. Okay, sorry. Okay, and now for John Humphrey Centre, like who are we? And JHC, John Humphrey Centre, is a nonprofit, charitable, nonpartisan organization that works to advance and realize the values and principles of the United Nations Declaration of Peace and Human Rights. So JHC has a couple things that we do. We are an educational organization, but also we get involved in a lot of like on-ground advocacy. So regarding education, we work with like individuals to facilitate conversations that lead to a place of healing. We work with youth to educate them of their human rights, also work with children as well, and we work with adult education as well. So that's what we do in terms of education. For advocacy, we do have on-ground advocacy programs where we have like different partners who or individuals who reach out to us when their human rights have been violated, and we kind of like walk with them through the process. I should have introduced myself. What I do at the center, I'm Idara, and what I do is I manage volunteers and also projects. So, and that was relevant because a lot of the work we do, a lot of the advocacy work is volunteer-based. So we have a base of about 100 volunteers who work with different individuals and organizations to walk them through the system, because we know that that can be very daunting. Sometimes people don't even know where to go. Sometimes people don't even know what sort of like resolution that they want. Sometimes people just want to talk. So we have a group and a volunteer base that is also supported by a few staff members who do an amazing job to support that advocacy program. So JHC actually began in November 26, 1998, and this began with the launch of the Universal Rights and Human Values, a blueprint for peace, justice, and freedom. So what actually happened on that day, November 26, 1998, is that there was a convention held that brought together speakers such as Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Her Excellency Mary Robinson, and the Right Honorable Antonio Lamer. And this event was the largest international commemoration and reflection of the 50th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it was also an kind of like a examination of the road ahead. And this event actually saw over 700 people come from 34 countries, and they gathered here in Edmonton. And then the John Humphrey Centre for Peace and Human Rights was founded out of this under the leadership of Gurcharan Singh Bhatia, Jack O'Neill, Gerard L. Gall. So that's just a bit of a summary of how the JH Centre was found. Okay, and we have a video here on who John Humphrey Centre was. So we'll watch it, and then after that, I'll do a little bit of a speaker notes, and then we'll move forward.
No. Mr. Humphrey, this Universal Declaration of Human Rights that you are trying to impose.
Mrs. Roosevelt and I only drafted the declaration. It will be up to you and your fellow delegates to adopt or reject.
But what you are proposing is that individual human rights should override a nation's legislation.
Well, that the state would no longer be above the law.
C'est absurde. It would compromise the very sovereignty of the Republic.
Yes, I believe it will.
Mr. President, in conclusion, I thank the court for allowing me to speak. I would like to reiterate that I believe my country's employment legislation discriminates against me because of my disability, and this violates the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Mr. President, our country's legislation was arrived at democratically. It is an expression
Say,
of national...
isn't that the Canadian who actually wrote the Declaration of Human Rights?
Okay, so that was a really short video, just giving a bit of a background. And John Peters Humphreys was a Canadian lawyer and a human rights advocate who taught law at McGill University before becoming the first director of the United Nations Division of Human Rights, and he held this position for 20 years. And he authorized the first draft of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and was also involved in the development of various human rights covenants and protected the divisions from a number of threats, including investigation by the staff for un-American activities. And later in his career, Humphrey introduced a highly successful technical assistance program in which international and regional seminars were held on specific human rights topics in countries all over the world. So he was also deeply involved in the attempt to create an Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in the 1960s. So that's a bit of a background there. And this image here really just shows a lot of what the John Humphrey Centre is about and what our values are, what our bases are, and kind of like how we do and move forward our human rights work. The image there is meant to represent the wholeness of human rights and basically to show what is needed for a person to have their human rights respected, or to create a society where we have human rights respected. And what are human rights? And how we like to define that is they are the things that each of us deserves to live a life of well-being. So the things that can make us be like successful members of society who contribute to society. Like mentioned, it was drafted by John Humphrey, who also supported the facilitation of, he worked with 31 different states to draft this and to action this document as well. And the idea was that it was to have one document that binds all states regarding what human rights are and how to protect them. So this image here as well, if we can see the pursing in the middle, and that what that actually signifies is centering the pursing. And a lot of the work that the John Humphrey Centre does, in that work, we try to center the most vulnerable people, which are often children, marginalized people, I apologize, people of color, etc. And we also understand that the 4 aspects of actually participating in having a human rights organization or society involve protection, participation, remedy, and provision. So when we do the work that we do at the center, we hope for changes in the lives of our target population. So we ask ourselves, are people living lives that are filled with dignity, freedom, equality, justice, and peace? As a result of our advocacy work? Are there changes in laws, policies, and practices that are affecting people's human rights? Have the laws changed to allow people to live safer and to live freer and to live more secure lives? Are there changes in equity and non-discrimination for target population? Do these changes overcome historical discrimination or other systemic inequality? And also, are there changes in capacity of government and civil society to support human rights? And do these changes also promote accountability for human rights? And also, are there changes in people's participation and active citizenship? So the barriers that exist for people to participate in decision-making, leadership, and other processes, we like to ask ourselves, have they been removed? And also, it's important to understand human rights as a dynamic and interconnected, holistic concept, as opposed to looking at it looking at it separated. And also, when we think about human rights, we like to think about our everyday relations as opposed to a piece of paper. Okay, so at the center, we have our theory of change, and this is very exciting because we've recently revisited this and refined it with the help of the entire team and from whatever learnings we've had so far at the center. So the John Humphrey Centre for Peace and Human Rights works to contribute to building societies based on 4 foundational values of human rights community: the right to freedom, justice, dignity, and security. Each of these values correlates to 4 pillars that should guarantee individual and community access to human rights: the right to protection from violation of rights, remedy when the rights have been violated, participation in the decisions that affect one's life, and access to basic human rights. So there are 4 human rights actions necessary for building a human rights-based community, and that's what we have: educate, facilitate, document, and advocate. And when we think about educating, the idea of knowing a person's right is it's fundamental in order to be able to claim the rights and be able to stand up for what a community needs. So therefore, educating the human rights for children, youth, and adults is at the core of JHC's work. So oftentimes we would facilitate conversations with various organizations or government institutions. I know we work with the National Organization Rights and Relations, which really is interested in adult education and having those hard conversations and finding out what are the things that we need to tease apart from the different demographics that we work with, and also letting people understand that these are the rights that you have. This is what a violation might look like, and this as well is what you can do to if you feel like your rights have been violated as well. A part of that also is with regards to educate is we work with youth to also protect their spaces. So a lot of what we do a lot of work. We recently started doing a lot of work with youth regarding digital literacy and safe use of the internet. Like, how do you use that? Because it's such a part of our lives now. How do you use it in a way that kind of protects, where you protect yourself? And we actually had that idea brought to us by 2 of our younger colleagues, and we have kind of decided to run with that because that is a demographic that understands what people go through in the online space. So we educate people on the roles and responsibilities of all people living together in community or at an organizational level to cultivate a culture of peace, respect, inclusion, and reciprocity. So as again, I mentioned when we'd have sessions with different organizations, oftentimes they would ask how do you create a more inclusive workspace? We could do anti-oppression, anti-racism trainings with organizations. We've done some work on microaggressions and understanding the isms. And it's really just an avenue to facilitate those conversations, but also educate people on what are the ways that we can all kind of work together to create safer spaces. What is necessary for your organization? What is necessary for your group? And how can we all work towards creating those safer and inclusive spaces? So JHC educates on human rights as values and tools. And also, to participate in community and decisions that affect us requires the act of facilitating. The center works to build community solutions through facilitation of dialogue and collective action across difference and diversity. Through these spaces of facilitation, we model good relations and build community. So to monitor and inform policy and decision-making, documenting human rights is necessary. JHC conducts community-based research on human rights issues, informing and bringing together the collective wisdom in community for sustainable solutions. So we've done a lot of work with like the educational sector, the healthcare sector. Like I mentioned as well, we did a lot of work, currently doing a lot of work with youth and social media as well. And also we've done a lot of work with food security. And oftentimes we would conduct research on this to find out like what are the people in this sector saying, where are the gaps, like what do the people feel is needed for a more for a more healthy like workspace. And oftentimes a lot of this, we publish like reports for this as well. So really like helping to document and to actually capture and unveil some of the issues that we're facing, and also kind of like provide and work with people to move forward. Okay, and also to access a needs in community or to seek remedy when injustice exists requires the act of advocating. So JHC connects people to access supports for immediate needs and further supports community in self-advocacy and navigation of human rights mechanisms to remedy discriminations or right violations. So during the COVID, when we were, I shouldn't say during COVID, but in about like 2021 and 2020, 2021, a little bit of 2022, we did a lot of food security work. And that's because there was a need for that. So we did a lot of advocacy. And it was really a lot. It was really community when I think about it, because we had and I'll give an example, we had a Facebook page for COVID response in Edmonton, and in about a week that grew to about 22,000 people. So what the center did was we got a team of volunteers, again community, to watch this page, and it was monitored like 24/7. And really what we were hoping to do was to make sure that there was proper dissemination of information. So we had a team of people who were making sure the information was accurate, because there was all sorts of things going out. Also, we had a group of people who was connecting people in like dire circumstances to available resources, whether those were immediate, which was a lot of the focus, but also longer term resources as well. And a lot of that, what we saw is like, for example, if a person posted or a family posted that they needed stuff on this Facebook page, a lot of times we just had people just be like, oh, I could help you, and run to that. So that was amazing to see. It was great. I like to always talk about that. And another, like I mentioned earlier, another piece of advocacy that we do is actually walking people through like the human rights complaint process as well, as far as they want to go, or whatever it is that that is needed. Okay, so the strategic priorities of the center are to engage children and young people in peace building and human rights education. So for example, when we think of like Social Stride, which is the digital online program that we have, where we think about like the storytelling seminars and sessions that our youth hold as well. And also in the work that the John Humphrey Centre has done, one of the things that we are, I guess, very excited to share is the Paint the Rails book. And essentially what that is I don't know how many people take a transit, but in certain transit stations, I know, for example, University, because I used to go there, and I think we're working on one, I think downtown as well. There are the murals on the walls of the transit stations. So that was really artists that helped, community artists that helped with that. A lot of youth worked on that. We got stories of people from different demographics shared their stories, and you know what the paintings were actually about. So there's a book on this if anybody's interested. There is I have some of these papers as well, so feel free. But there is a link here where you can actually get the book. So just, you know, it's a really interesting, fun read. So I wanted to mention that. Another thing that we do is foster adult learning and build community collaboration through education and dialogue on peace and human rights. So that is the advocacy part. We also work with government, businesses, and organizations to strengthen their application of human rights. For example, we've worked with Covenant Health as well. I mentioned that we work with the health sector. So those are some of the things. Those are the strategic priorities of the center. Oh, no, I did not get this right. Okay. I think that's the one. Ooh, it's just, okay, well, let's see. So the one event I really wanted to highlight today is so just how I mentioned that the John Humphrey Centre was founded in 1998 after we had the 50th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Peace and Human Rights. We have the 75th coming up, and that's actually this year. So the session is going to be held. So that's this year in December. So the John Humphrey Centre, as well as Writing Relations and Canadian for Civil Society, and about like 15 other organizations are holding a 10-day convention, a 10-day global convention to mark the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Peace and Human Rights. So this is going to be a major international event, and it will provide a safe space for reflection on the state of human rights. It will also provide opportunities for growth and mentorship on human rights, and it will also facilitate a strengthened network of an intergenerational community of learnings committed to building stronger, more resilient, and more inclusive communities. Let's hope that works. Okay. So this is just some additional information. It will be a hybrid event, actually, is what we're hoping for. Obviously, because it is going to be international, that is just to make it like lower barrier for people to attend. And so that's just something I would like people to mark their calendars for the session, or for the convention, I should say, for December 1 to 10th. And it's going to be really exciting. Okay, and I just wanted to go a little bit more into the themes and what we will be discussing at the convention. So we've made like a lot of headway in our programming, and so different things that we will be talking about is we'll be discussing like genocide, colonization. We'll talk about the isms. We'll talk about like the 2S LGBTQ plus inclusion. We'll talk about dignity as well. Prison justice, as well as like international human rights and what that looks like. Anti-corruption day as well, I think is kind of important. So those are a few of the things that we will be discussing at the convention, and some of the themes. And I just want to mention that this is international, so some of our speakers will be, our speakers will be from around the world, and the people who are hosting the session as well. So it's going to be a great way to just kind of like make connections too. So methods of delivery. So the main space will be Zoom. And we'll have an online virtual space, and the hope is to have also networking events, networking spaces in person and also virtually, as well as we would be broadcasting these sessions as well. And yeah, we're still in the process of building it up, but definitely would be an online space, and just to kind of like keep the costs down as well. But it's going to be a whole lot of like really valuable and important information. So hopefully the online delivery does accommodate that. Okay, and just like I mentioned, circling back to principles of JHC, which one of them is youth programming. So throughout the event, we will be working with a lot of youth, and we'll be hoping to create spaces where their voices, I should say, voices can be heard, and to bring different perspectives to the table as well. So that I just wanted to kind of like mention that as we would have youth programming, we would also be having like older adults education as well. So like I mentioned, that is where we would have that intergenerational intersection for the convention. Okay, and I just wanted to mention here that there are some ways to engage. So like I mentioned, we are building out our programming, and we are going to be discussing a lot of like human rights themes. So if anybody here knows of an organization or is interested in hosting a space for the convention, that would be very welcome. I do have some cards around, and I also do have, I did bring copies for our call for programming, so please feel free to take some for yourself and to share with anybody who you know is also interested. So that's one way to participate, to engage. We're also always looking for volunteers, and as the volunteer manager, I kind of want to like emphasize on that. So because the conventions they do take quite a bit of work to run. I kind of give up on this. So yeah, if you are interested or you have a volunteer pool that you think would like to be engaged in this, I also did bring my cards as well, and we have our contact information on all of the information in here. And another way that you can participate as well is to donate, or if you donate or sponsor. So if that is something that you're interested in as well, just feel free to send us an email, and that's something we can talk about. But that is kind of what I have for this group today. Thank you. Like I said, contact information here. I have all my pamphlets available and my business card as well if anybody wants to contact us. Otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Oh.